a band with hard rock and heavy sound. So we're very excited to have you guys. Thank you for coming.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
They've been known as the band to embrace the true hard rock sound. Their music have been compared with the sounds of some great bands like the Glorious Sons, Queens of Stone Age, and early PJ Harvey. They can be described as a dance rock machine with cutting vocals that amp up to the edge of sanity and pulsing rock beats. Clunk Music Blog claimed that this band will shit on the statement that rock music is dead. Joan, the lead singer, spent the last decade playing with Littlefoot, Longfoot, and for the past several years, she's also been touring internationally with Serena Ryder, who's an Oregon musician, of course. Tom Uhas, right?
That's right.
Thank you for correcting me. Just correct me if I'm
That's all good, Jack.
Is an accomplished touring and studio guitar player, known for his work with Ryan O'Reilly, among many others. They've been releasing a string of singles and very interesting music videos that I want to talk to you guys about.
Okay.
So it's a great pleasure for me to welcome Joe Smith and the Jane Does. Thank you really for hanging out with us today.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Thanks for
that's
having us.
awesome to have you here.
Yeah.
So I guess the first question is, how's everything going so far with the pandemic? How are you surviving, not only artistically, but what is the challenge in the industry right now for you as a local band?
Certainly not singular.
Yeah,
Challenges.
There are many challenges. Yeah, I guess, I mean, first of all, the first hit was just gigs getting canceled. And we had a few lined up. We had some pretty exciting ones lined up too. So first, just dealing with that disappointment, but we're all in the same boat. So, but the fortunate part was that we already had some music pretty much ready to go. We were figuring out when we were going to release it. So it actually turned out to be sort of fortuitous in terms of more people are just sitting in front of their computers and their phones, and we were going to release them digitally anyways. So that part was okay.
Yeah, and certainly the feelings of wanting something that sounded aggressive to suit the times. But yeah, we had some really fun shows set up with our friends in Tan Blonde and Ace of Wands, and I think Tan Blonde released their record, and hopefully it's doing really well.
Yeah.
It sounds great. But yeah, it's just a big question mark. Like, when do we get to actually do it? Yeah. The bright side is certainly we've had a lot of time to figure some other things out. Finish some songs that we just kept piling up these recordings of things that seize whatever opportunity we could if we had some studio time or people were in town, and we just had a big bunch of drum takes, which is certainly the easiest thing to have in this situation because it's the hardest thing to get done in a room. But
is this did you guys were they all done in a home studio? Or?
The drums were done in the studio.
Yeah, properly in the studio.
Properly.
I didn't they sound great.
Thanks, man. We have some awesome friends that play the drums. You know, Glenn Milcham is on a lot of the recent ones, and Jesse Leibovitz is on Normalize, and Lyle Molson is on some of the stuff we're going to be doing in the next live stream. But so he had a studio at home that he was able to get some drums down.
But the chat, definitely a challenge was figuring out the live stream thing. Tom used all the colorful words.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it takes
crazy.
It'll take 5 to 10 minutes just to test something. Sure. You know, so if you have to test something, I don't know, 30 times before you ask someone if they can check it out, you know, just to give you some feedback.
And the volatility of the internet itself, and the resolution of the camera, and all these things that we don't usually have to worry about. Suddenly it's like becoming a tech in a whole other venue. So a lot of musicians have just become way more versed in this other way because we've had no other choice, you know?
Whose idea was that?
I mean, I guess we talked about it, and then because we figured at some point we should do something. At first there was no desire. It was kind of like, ugh.
Everyone was shocked.
Yeah, and we were like, but we can do this in an amplified way, because we really didn't want to do it in the acoustic way, because it's not how our music is really served.
We've been doing some tours recently with F. Scott and the Nighthawks earlier in the spring of last year, and the tour was sort of designed so that, you know, we weren't really supposed to have a full band. So we made a version of our band that is with Tron Bonham, which one of the guys from the band, which is just a little loop station drum machine thing that we started with a pocket operator and then expanded on that and then just started dumping all this. So we had this whole set full of things that we could do as a duo. Yeah. And we wanted to make a video of it and sell that as another option because, you know, we're fairly new to the game and you know, in terms of our band. But
the videos are very interesting.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. Yeah, I mean, I guess that's been an advantage of having a lot of time. I had edited together a couple of videos in the past, but it was a lot of time to suddenly just shoot ourselves in a basement with a camera and edit after that. Yeah,
way less harmful.
How do you manage to have so much time to work on these things? I mean, I've seen you a couple of times live. Mm-hmm. Every time that you play, well, I saw you in Kensington. I saw you play in different areas, and all of them sounded a little bit different from each other. I mean, I've seen you also in other projects.
Right.
Also with the Generator Party.
Oh yeah, the cover band.
Right.
Yeah. How do you have so much time to practice, record, do it again, do the videos, everything? You have plenty of things going on.
I guess, well, I mean, during the pandemic, there's lots of
course,
time.
Yeah.
Right now, we're lucky to be in Canada, really.
Because I started following you guys, and like every now and then, like new singles coming out, I'm like, wow, this band is working really hard during the pandemic.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good time to release new material because usually everyone's fighting for like right now it would just be like, I'm in this music festival and like usually during the summer we would both be working for other artists as well and trying to juggle all the different projects. And I guess usually we're pretty good at just going through calendars and trying to balance everything, but suddenly it's like this luxury of empty calendar. So it's just sort of like picking when you want to release a single and then, all right, got to make that video. And it's good to have any kind of deadline at all right now because having no deadlines, I mean, I don't have a lot of motivation sometimes at all during this. So it's good to have a goal.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Helps that you have each other every time so you can talk about it.
We can hold each other accountable and
kick each other's ass.
Totally.
What's the process like for generally writing a song? Is it different every time, or like can you talk to us a little bit about that?
Sure.
I guess like I'm usually pretty private at the beginning when I come up with an idea.
Private, like you don't share with anyone?
Yeah, I'm not a good collaborator when initially writing anything.
Do you agree with that?
Well, I mean, I think she's a great collaborator, but it's there's a whole culture in the music business where people get together for songwriting sessions. You know, you think about Nashville and LA, and this is just a thing people do, and so much of our friends do that, and you know, and they've come up to Joan and myself and just like, oh, we should try work on one of your songs, and I'm the same way. Yeah. I'm just like, no, like I'm gonna finish it and then I'll ask for some help, and that's essentially the way it goes with us. Like one of us will come to the table with like a full song, a finished song, and then the other one will be like, maybe we could work on this section, or we can add this or whatever. So. That seems
to work for us. Like, I mean, personally, my head has to go into pretty dark places to get to a lot of what I want to write about. So it becomes really hard to be like sitting in another room being like, hey, do you want to have a beer? And how was your day? And it's like, oh my God, my life. Yeah, so it's better just to be by myself. Yeah. And then once the idea is born, happy to improve upon it after that fact. So Tom's really great at improving upon
Do you guys
ideas.
Have anybody else contributing, or is it mainly just
so far? No,
not really. No, Yeah. I mean, like, we've hired friends to add instruments and sometimes giving them very vague outlines. We want some synthy noises.
Yeah, Brian Kobayakawa, who plays bass in Serena's band as well, is a good pal of ours, and he started getting into the daunting world of synthesizers and samples, and so we just sent him all the files and just said, I don't know. And
he sent a ton of stuff
all
back.
All kinds of stuff.
And that's cool.
And that's been kind of a big stepping stone for a lot of the Tron Bonham stuff too, because there was a lot of synth information that just, we didn't need all of it for the like rock 4-piece essentially. Yeah. But all of a sudden you have this whole other formation where there's 808s and everything else, and all that stuff takes on this whole other sound and feeling, Do
you get the feeling that it's very different to have real musicians versus the
absolutely
the drummer, the fake drummer with you?
Oh yeah, it's totally different.
100% our favorite thing to have an actual band.
Yes.
As a drummer, I feel like
yeah, no, I know. It's like there's definitely guilt in like not having a band. It gives us so much more flexibility and freedom, and obviously in these times now, being able to just still kind of do a rock show without,
or even you playing by yourself without Tom at the rec room.
Yes.
Yeah,
still,
that looked great.
I mean, it fills the place, but you can still feel the need for Tom to be there
for sure,
playing the other guitar.
Yeah,
right?
Of course.
We just kind of wanted to make this a thing that.
More flexible.
We didn't have to say no to anything. If we really wanted to do it, it would be better to do it than to not do it.
Yeah, because it's like my old band. Like it's great to have the camaraderie of a bunch of people with Littlefoot Longfoot. I mean, we haven't done a gig in a year or so because I've been focused on this. Like I've never said like it's over or anything, but it's just. People at first were like, which band are you doing? You're doing this band? You're doing that band? What's happening? And it's like, well, this is the focus for now. Yeah. But it was also a thing like Jeff, my bandmate in that band, he's a very busy musician as well. So sometimes just like it was impossible to coordinate our schedules with that. So and you end up saying no to some good opportunities sometimes, whether it's my schedule or somebody else's schedule. Yeah. So our goal with this was basically like as long as I can do it.
And there's like
it can happen.
We have a selection of really dear friends that are awesome at what they do, and if we can't have them, then we'll do it with Tron
and then sometimes people only want like at the Rec Room they only wanted it to be a solo show, and I was like, well, can I still do it totally drum machine and loud guitar? And they're like, yeah, sure, why not? Because I'm just not a strummy guitar singer-songwriter.
That's not there,
It's not there right now.
Suit the sound.
Yeah, I haven't been there in about 10 years.
Oh, and it's more recent.
Yeah.
What's the? I'm curious about you mentioned you have to go to a dark space kind of to really. So talk to us about that. Is it something you can go in and out, your control, or is it something like, okay, I'm feeling dark right now, I think I need to make some music, or is it a combination of both? I
guess the times that I've probably written the best stuff is when I've already been in a dark place.
Okay.
But yeah, there was like one time I'd sort of written a song and then Tom was like, the lyrics aren't all there yet. And it was already a very dark themed song. It's like, no, like you're not all the way there. I'm like, okay, well, I just have to go by myself. And I was like going through old journals because I was writing about a time in my life from a very specific time. So I was reading through old journal entries to get myself right back in that place. And it sucks, but that's when honesty comes out.
Totally.
Yeah, I can't really just like, I'm going to write a song about the cottage. Oh, I like the cottage. It's nice. It's sunny. Like, that doesn't work for me.
And the thing about going to a dark place, that's when it's good to have someone that you trust to collaborate with.
You, Tom, as well? Like, you kind of start writing when you're in a dark place? Or?
Yeah, I don't really know how it works for me. Like, well, just to speak to what she was saying, like, and the idea of collaborating, sometimes when you're going to that dark place, you will skip over a few things because either you're afraid of them or you don't want to dig any further, right?
Yeah.
So, but that's where the good
Right?
stuff is, right? So,
Yeah.
so even if it takes a little bit of something that's uncomfortable, you know.
Yeah.
It sounds like it could be a very personal and emotional experience, I guess, right?
Yeah.
For sure.
And how do you balance that? Like, when let's say you wrote something, and then, like, another musician, either like Tom, is asking you to change it differently.
Yeah.
How do you balance that? Like, because it's so personal to you, right? And
There's always a moment
same
of.
question for you, Tom.
What?
Same question for you.
Oh, yeah,
Like,
for
when
sure.
you write something so personal and emotional, and somebody's like asking you to change it.
Yeah.
There's always a moment of like, oh God, really? No, it's perfect.
She's really good though because she's like pretty open to a lot of once her idea is out there, then we can manipulate it and agree on a lot of things. But there's always a point with Joan where it's just like, no, and
Then
it's
I'll
not
stop,
even
yeah.
it's not even a conversation. It's just like, that's wrong. No, that can't be that way.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's part of being an artist is at some point. Yeah, there's just
Like
certain things that
fluidity.
I have to feel inside. If I was like, oh, I don't care all the time, I'm like, here's the thing I wrote, I'll do whatever you want.
Yeah.
Like, it's a rock song, turn it into a ska song. Like, it could be the greatest, and then I'd be like, oh, it's a great idea. And then other times it's like, no.
Yeah.
Like, it's just like, this feels wrong. No,
Yeah.
because we're doing it because we love it. So if it's
Yeah.
gonna make me feel shitty inside, then
Yeah.
I don't want to do it.
Well, yeah. And it's-
Whether it might be a good idea, it might
It's
be
the
a
same
great
reaction
idea.
with him as well, or?
Yeah, I like, for me, so far the only thing we've released that I have come to the table with is Horny for Pandemic.
Mhm.
And I had that thing sitting around for like 10 years. I've played it with like 4 other bands, and I had redone things so many times over just because I was that was one of the songs where I was kind of learning how production works, really.
The name of the song, I hope, is not 10 years old. It's Pandemic.
It actually is.
It is.
Yeah.
Really? No
Wow.
way.
Yeah, that's like, so it's like very timely. Like,
Well,
started.
it was this moment of like, Tom,
This
if you
must
don't
be
release
done.
this now, it's never, because
Yeah.
no one's going to want
I
to hear
had-
this
had
word
some
ever
friends,
again after that.
Some friends that had played it with me kind of like, just like, dude, where's that song? And then Joan and some other friends of ours were, yeah. So it took a week to finish it, and we sent it to our mixing guy, and
Because it was half done already. It had been sitting around half done for
yeah,
a year or two. So it was
There's-
time.
yeah, it was time.
Yeah.
Well, can you tell us about the song? Like what?
Yeah.
Behind the song and how it came up with it. Or, I guess it's been a long time, but
It has,
Tell
yeah.
us about biggest.
It was very much, it was kind of funny, like, just based on, I don't know, a lot of things that we're experiencing now, but from, I guess, a more naive angle. Just how news sources can invoke a lot of fear, and some things get blown out of proportion, and things like vaccines can be scary, and yeah, now that everything's kind of hitting the way it is, it's kind of, there was also a big, I guess the reason why I put horny in there is because every time something flared up, it was like, there was fear, but there was also excitement. There was
The
kind
media
of like,
was like, ah!
there was
yes.
there was sort of like an Independence Day sort of, apocalyptic movie, the whole zombie, and everything else, lust that people crave and just like devour. They love that shit. So that was the reason why I used the word horny. But when everything happened in reality now, I kind of had to take a step back and be like, I got to fix some of these lyrics. And that was, I mean, Joan had already helped me fix the lyrics that were supposed to come out before the pandemic, and then when the pandemic hit, it was just like, I stayed up for like 2 days, just like, I don't know what to do. And it ended up being like a couple little tweaks, but yeah, she was just like, you just have to change the perspective of everything.
Nice.
Yeah, so.
And also getting Friendly Rich too. That was
and
a good
also getting
collaboration
Friendly
that we
Rich,
did.
yeah.
Yeah.
That was a huge collaboration. I've done a lot of work with him, and he is always like on the side of like comedic, like political satire in his music constantly, and I'm always on his end of the point, you know. So it was awesome having him involved. Yeah.
And in terms of the riffs that you use, do you kind of combine the music that you're preparing for the song with the lyrics? Are they talking to each other, or is it something that you like? Sometimes I just feel like I need to play this riff because it just sounds good. I like this chord progression because it sounds great. And then when I hear that, then I'm like, oh, well, I'm gonna add these lyrics because that's what the progression is telling me.
Right.
Do you get that feeling, or how do you connect them?
I've worked both ways, I guess.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's been like singing in the shower and then thinking of a riff, and then it's just more like thinking of a melody and then just singing a melody into my phone, and then writing the lyrics after that. Once in a while, there's been some times it's like there's just certain words I can't get out of my head.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the lyrics are there before, and then
sometimes
kind of just like, well, I'm gonna add this riff that talks to me.
Yeah, or like writing some poems lyrics, and then fitting it together. So yeah, it can, for me, it can be both ways. Yeah.
Yeah, it's such a weird. There's kind of like a, I don't know, like a blind sort of trust in where your brain is going. When for me, lyrics are a lot tougher. But I hate songs that don't have any purpose or point.
I see.
You know, or they don't really match sonically. They don't match what's actually happening.
Yeah.
It's like every musical idea sort of has to hang off the purpose of the lyric. You know, but. I also love instrumental music. So sometimes for me, writing music is kind of like, I'll come up with a cool riff and then just record it and just let it sit there until...
It talks to me.
Sometimes, you know, you're just walking down the street or driving in your car, and all of a sudden there's like a potential chorus or whatever, or a verse or a pre-chorus, or something that's going to get scrapped, but it leads you to the thing that makes you inspired to sit down and just be like, you know, listen again.
This is it.
I also really like to just phonetically write down lyrics and try to make them sound good.
Yeah.
And it's interesting, once you listen to yourself sing it back, there's moments that are just like, ugh. Like, that's not it. That's not the word that's going to be used there. Yeah.
Do you get the feeling that sometimes you go directly to the same type of music? I see myself sometimes going directly to blues, again to blues, and again to blues, and then I'm like, probably I should listen to something else because this is just getting me into the same way. Do you get that feeling that sometimes you're attached for a couple of months or years or?
I've had that.
Yeah.
I think Tom's a lot more.
Musical ADD.
Yeah, he can listen to anything.
I want all of it.
Yeah.
I want it all. Like, I hear something, or like, how do you do that? How do I make a song like that? How do we, you know? It's troublesome.
You call it musical ADD?
I guess it's musical ADD.
I mean, Horny for Pandemic is probably a good example of that.
There's a lot of different genres mixed in there. But I'm very like, sometimes I'm like, oh God, I need to stop listening to only rock music. Why do I only listen to rock music? And like, there's certain things that I can move on over to another genre, but I will always end up going back to like heavy, sort of blues-based, sludgy, screaming vocal music.
And your voice allows you to do that.
Yeah, like it's nice that
you have the instrument
can
there.
do that. Yeah. It was weird, like growing up when I was playing acoustic guitar and singing softly, but meanwhile all I was doing was listening to.
What were you playing?
What was I playing?
Yeah, growing up.
It'd be a good time to talk about your influences.
Well, so like in terms of other artists, what was I playing?
When you started playing.
Well, I guess since what was at my fingertips was only an acoustic guitar, it was like, I think the first song I ever played in public was Crucify by Tori Amos, along with Who Will Save Your Soul by Jewel, were the two songs I played. So, but then I moved on to No Doubt. Yeah, like it started moving more towards some like more rock bands, but yeah, it was like I have an acoustic guitar, so I'm playing Sarah McLachlan, and that's what I'm doing. And it wasn't until I didn't get an electric guitar until like my mid-20s, so up until then it was all acoustic guitar, just gentle. But meanwhile, I was listening to like heavier and heavier. I was like listening to Rage Against the Machine and Nirvana like all the time. But then I'm like, here's my gentle song. Like my first EP, like I think I played it for Tom one time, but I don't want anyone to really ever feel that. If anyone ever finds it, don't put it on the internet, please.
That's my soft side.
Yeah, that's my soft
good.
side.
But yeah, no, Joan's like a catalog of classic rock, and yeah, she pulls all kinds of trivia out of nowhere. Yeah.
I know.
When you bought the electric guitar, was that when you first started playing with the band?
I was playing with a band before that. I would just have an acoustic guitar.
What kind of music were you guys playing?
I guess it was just sort of blues-based, sort of folky pop. Mm-hmm. And it had a very unfortunate name. We were Joan Smith and the Huxtables. That is a terrible piece of trivia. Thought it was really funny at the time. Yeah, that was a lot.
Was this in Toronto?
It was in Toronto. So like we'd play at the Horseshoe or Say What, a couple of other cafes around. But then yeah, once I got my electric guitar, that's when I started Little for Longfoot, and we were just a two-piece band, and I was just obsessed with Jack White and White Stripes. So I was like, yeah, it's this. This is what it's going to be. And then I was suddenly happy. I was like, I like my music now. Before that, I really didn't like my music. I was just doing it because I was like, I guess I'm kind of good at it. I don't know. People seem to like it. But yeah, then I was like, oh, sweet. This is worth it.
Do you now have like a favorite gear that you use? I know you use your red guitar.
Yeah. I guess, yeah, that's my new favorite guitar. The one my very first electric guitar, this Yamaha from the 60s that I got from a friend of mine, Mikey Manville, that one's still my favorite guitar. It's just that with the music that we play now, it's such a beast of just feedback. It's very unwieldy, but I still love it. I'll probably end up starting to play it again at some point.
Yeah, it's a cool guitar.
It's an amazing, it is like, I pick it up and I'm like, oh yeah, this guy.
Yeah.
But yeah, I haven't played it in a while. But the new Red Reverend is definitely.
That's the one that you use the most.
It's feeling nice,
and
yeah.
We found her Yamaha. We found the identical bass.
Yeah.
It'll be awesome once we can have a gig where we're both playing that.
Yeah, it's like the same guitar, just bass and guitar, same era.
It's cool.
Yeah.
Do you have like your favorite guitar that you use normally?
I am like. The least precious about gear. I like gear, but I like when it's cheap and it does the job.
Okay.
So I've got a lot of Frankenstein guitars.
Yeah.
A good friend of mine, Dave Robinson, builds all my amps.
Okay.
So I have like 6 or 7 heads of his, and they're all like, with the exception of 2 that he built from scratch, they're all like salvaged electronics, like Film of Sounds, and
yeah, they're super cool.
That sounds amazing. This guy
he's awesome.
Yeah.
Sounds great.
Yeah. Just lives in
Dave
Georgetown,
Robinson.
and he's like a former electrician. Or worked at Bell.
Yeah, he worked at Bell. Yeah.
And then he just works
his
in
brother.
basement.
His brother founded Eastwood. The company Eastwood. Yeah, they have guitars out of Chicago now, but yeah, he just like really gets off on building amps and started just collecting old electronics and with cool tube circuits and schematics and a friend of mine, I had some weird radios that I picked up for way too much money. I definitely got hosed on that deal, which was fine because it led me to Dave, because I needed someone to make them into amps, I brought them to Dave, and he's like, these are not gonna work. But I brought something else to him like a couple months later, and I use it all the time. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
What was your influence like, Tom, when you were growing up?
Growing up, yeah, like I said, all over the map.
Everything, like,
But yeah, I mean,
Any song more than the other?
my dad was a bass player.
Oh, nice.
And yeah, he got me into a lot of like Beatles and Eagles and
Beatles is your favorite too.
Yeah.
yeah, all kinds of stuff, you know, from that era. And my brother's a drummer. That's a little bit older than me, and he was always into jazz, and there was always cool sounds coming from the basement. So, you know, when I was like, by the time I was in grade 7 and 8, I was the weird kid that listened to like Medeski, Martin and Wood, and Dinosaur Jr. and all these bands that none of my friends had any idea what it was, and then when I showed it to them, they were like, "Why?" So, but I loved it, and it just got me into exploring all kinds of different sounds.
What was the first Eagles song you heard? Or you remember?
Well,
It was
probably Hotel California.
A lot of
this
guitarists
and
would
this
say
is
that.
like, you know, like I guess I started at a young age. Like, I had a guitar in my hands at the age of 7 with lessons. So like
What?
at that,
Yeah,
I think
he
not.
started,
Yeah. Here's how, like...
I was lucky. Yeah, exactly. I was lucky to have a lot of music in the family.
That's amazing.
And yeah, even some of my cousins and everything, like, it definitely seems like there's a lot of music in the blood.
That's amazing. Yeah, it's like everyone who tells me that they started listening to by Eagles. Just Hotel California is like their first song. But
Yeah,
having the guitar
it's
was-
huge. You go anywhere in the world,
Yeah.
and people are.
Yeah.
You hold a guitar. I've had that happen to me in very many places of the world. They're like, "You play the guitar? Play Hotel California."
It happens all the time.
Yeah.
I was like 10 years old, and my parents took me to the Eagles concert, and all I knew was Hotel California, of course. So I waited the whole concert.
You're like, come
for
on.
them, like, when are they playing the good stuff?
Yeah.
When's
I-
that song?
I must have learned it like 10 times before I actually learned something close to what it actually is supposed to go like,
Yeah.
too.
That's the learning process.
Yeah.
You guys have been around for a while. One question I wanted to ask you guys was, how do you see the music landscape changing in Canada? What it was like 10 years ago, or even like 15? Let's say like, when you started.
Oh,
When you
wow,
really
yeah.
started playing live venues. And then
Oh,
you guys
man,
wanted to have
such a
a band
different
and a
beast.
musical career. Like, you guys are both full-time musicians, right?
Yes.
So when you wanted to have a music career, what it was like then, and what is it like right now?
Ah,
And
oh boy.
It's a loaded question, but
I guess it's funny because I guess I started like touring in earnest about 10 years ago, and back then all I would talk about with my musician friends is like, oh, if we were in the 90s, if we started in the 90s, like we'd all be like millionaires. We thought
so this is 2010?
yeah, like I guess it was like 2008, 2009, 2010 was like burgeoning indie rock stuff. And back then we thought that we had it hard, and now I think back 10 years, I'm like, oh my god, I was an idiot. Like, it was so much, like there were so many blogs back then. Like the first record that I released with and hired a publicist, it's like massive coverage all over, and was able to easily tour across Canada, like book gigs really easily, because touring wasn't the only source of income still. So it was competitive, but it, like, comparing it to now, it's crazy how much streaming has just changed the landscape. Because it used to be back then, it'd be like, oh cool, you're in a band, oh, I'm gonna go on my iTunes, I just bought your album. So within a month, like in a month to month, it'd still be making, even as like a tiny indie band, like $600 in iTunes sales.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's like looking at streaming revenue and being like, oh, okay, made
34 cents.
34 cents, woohoo! Yeah, exactly. Like it's, and so many more bands are touring because it's the only way that they can make money. So just booking gigs out of town is hard. So that's what I've noticed. And like, and then, but meanwhile, getting hired by bigger artists and then seeing the whole other side of the coin. And but like playing for Serena, she got in the 2000s as well. Like she was squeaking in at the early 2010s. So she's also based off of that recognition from even 7 years ago, where there was more recognition back then than there is now. Like everything's just shrinking and shrinking.
So why do you think that's the case? Outside of the streaming, you also mentioned that there's a lot more band now than before.
I think there's just more bands trying to tour because it's the only way to make any money.
Okay. And does that create a challenge?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it just creates more competitiveness to even get booked on it. Like, we can play in town whenever we want because it's our hometown and bookers trust us, but trying to get out of town, it's suddenly like, well, you better bring 100 people because this venue's about to shut down because nobody's going to music venues anymore. And music venues weren't suffering at that level also 10 years ago that they seem to be now. Like, music venues are definitely getting shut down at a higher rate than they used to be because more people are also more apt to look up something on the internet versus go to a show. Seems like we like met a kid in front of the Bovine Sex Club last year. He was like 22 and he's like, well, you guys are in a band? I'm like, yeah. He's like, I've never been to a live show in my life. And he was 22.
What?
It's like, oh, maybe you'll go to the show tonight. Yeah, I know. It was like,
live music's where it's at though. Like once you go to a live concert, you there's never going back.
I would hope so.
Going back to the.
It's like, it's like the best times ever that I've had in my life.
So when you were touring nationwide, did you tour down in the US as well?
Not with that band. No, never made it to the US. It's a whole other thing going to the US with visas and.
Is that the dream?
It's a bit of a challenge.
Where you?
It would be great.
I mean, right now, not so much.
Right now, no way.
But yeah, I don't know. It's hard. Like, I've definitely gone down with a few bands and.
What's the when you mentioned the visa situation? Do you have to get a specific visa?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yes.
So you can't just go and then
No. They're fairly strict at the border. I don't know.
Is it always or right now after Trump? Speaking of Trump, I know you guys wrote a song about it.
Yeah.
So I'm going to talk about that later.
Right.
But is it now or? Is
Oh
it
no!
it's
ever since I've known about touring in the States, there has been it's been a challenge.
And is it like a specific artist visa? I think.
Yeah, you need to.
O2. I think Jackson is
O2.
he says O2
Yeah.
because he's a photographer, so he's like, yeah, I know.
Okay.
I know.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, there's O2. Like, we both have
Or you
O2s
can
through
get P
other
visas as well.
artists. But yeah, P visas are the other one.
It's there's a lot of ways of going about it, but it is costly, and it is, like a lot of things in this business, a little bit of you just have to pretend things are all in order, because there's no way you could have them in order in the time frame. I mean, depending on what scale of artist you are, like, I'm sure
Beyonce won't have any problem.
Yeah, if she wants to come to Canada, but that's the other thing is I don't think Canada has the same.
Type of restrictions?
They don't have the same.
Americans can come to Canada to play a lot easier, but America
Americans
wants
have
to
never been.
keep the musicians where save that work for Americans. So
I'm from Mexico City. A couple of friends of mine would go on different flights to the US just to not get the visa and play in LA or play in New York, just hidden, they were just going on a tourist trip.
That's crazy.
And they would just take different flights. Like, I'm bringing just my guitar because I'm just playing with my friends, and that's it. But then they were playing not huge gigs, but mid-sized gigs.
That could be.
We're not going to talk about those bands.
Yeah, we don't know any
We don't know any of
tricks.
these.
We have never heard of these.
It's a new technique, guys.
We have never discussed how to get across the border.
This is instructional video.
How to beat the government.
No, but I've definitely had all kinds of, even when the band was totally legit, like weird. Speaking about how much time we have on our hands to make music, some of the questions and the amount of time they keep you there, and the games they play at the border, just trying to fuck with your head and get you to slip up. It's and then you start being like, well, I can't slip up because I'm telling the truth. But then they keep going, and it's like, this guy's being way too nice, and he's asking a lot of questions, and am I gonna slip up in a way that is not even slipping up. I'm just getting
they
more
use that,
nervous. Yeah, like I've had enough experiences at the border where it's just like, what the fuck are you trying to do to me right now? Just here's the papers, there's the money. Can we please go? No, you still have another hour and a half. Yeah.
Crazy.
That's crazy. Yeah. What's do you like? What do you think? What's needed right now? What would be the ideal situation for Canadian musicians like yourself? Like ideal landscape. Like this would benefit us.
Been talking to a few people about that recently. It's coming up because we bring up Spotify a lot amongst our friends, and
so Spotify hasn't been helpful for you guys.
No,
in terms of exposure. No?
Well, not as yet, but we're not playing the Spotify game. I think if we played the Spotify game, I'm sure it would help us exposure wise. But
what is the Spotify game? Sorry.
It's like, I mean, the advice is like use it like as if it's social media, and like just pump it as hard as possible. Like if we focused all of our social media on Spotify, and there's just, but it's like Spotify wants you to only promote them, and then you'll get the benefits, but then you get zero financial benefits from that. Versus like, check out our Bandcamp where you can buy our song for 99 cents and we'll get 95 of those cents. Like that makes more sense to promote for us to be able to eat versus the percentage of cents. But in terms of what I was talking to people about recently is, even if like Canada had its own streaming service that would kind of compensate its artists better.
Like something like Spotify, but Canadian based?
Yeah, it would be Canadian based, and also...
Or if there was just new, effective, I don't know, laws in place to...
Yeah, like Germany has really good
It's a
copyright
tough one
laws.
Because there's always, every time you start talking about that stuff, there's a whole... I don't know, every time it gets into the government's hand, there's always this thing where it's just like, yeah, but they're going to spin it so that they just take away a lot of things from the regular citizens.
The government would, or the company, or both?
Like the government would, you know, like if you, I don't know, the more laws you put in, the more it's going to affect people, just the common person, you know? Like, so if we put more rules on taxing things or whatever, it's like, well, what does that mean, and what kind of access do they have? And you know, so it's such a wide open game right now, like but finding a way to make it, I mean I personally think that like one of the hugest issues is that the whole, I mean, being an artist is based on like either a lifestyle or a persona or a sound or a culture, and a lot of that has kind of been washed into the same lump, and it really comes down to numbers. Like we've really let numbers be the curators of what's cool. And when we were growing up, there's like countless, you know, artists and personalities and curators of music that, you know, there's like famous DJs, like radio DJs and stuff like that, where, you know, they told you what was cool, and
somehow it feels like the algorithm is taking the control.
Like totally.
Listen, right?
And if your numbers fit into this
like
category, then we'll pay attention. And it's like, what? How about you do something interesting, and someone decides it's interesting, and other people agree that this person, when they find something interesting, it's under this umbrella of style or feel or sound.
So what do you think, like what's a good way, it's a great point, Tom, like how can we solve this though? Like what, they take the algorithm out, or like what do you
how do you do that, right? Like how do you it's a good question. That is a good question. I mean, it's something that we certainly think about a lot. And when we do bring up any resistance towards Spotify, the funny thing is, a lot of musicians and you know, people that we know that enjoy music end up just being like, well, I like the way it does playlists and it's very convenient for me, and it
is very user friendly.
It is.
Of course,
That's how they designed it.
Totally.
I know.
That's why they can't cut right.
It's a very well made app, and it's perfectly designed. It's just, it's taken away. I was like seeing some like viral video the other day of like someplace in the States where there was just like a big giant non-socially distant pool party, and everyone's like, oh my god, they're spreading COVID everywhere. But the thing was that they were all rocking out to Sweet Child of Mine. It's like a bunch of 20-year-olds, and then somebody's commenting on it. It's like, why are you rocking out to a song from 30 years ago? Like, why aren't you rocking out to a song from right now? Like,
what's the cool song?
This guy who's 50 is like, I wasn't rocking out to Perry Como when I was 20. like it's just that.
Maybe the songs like 30 years ago were much cooler than.
Yeah, they were cooler, and also there was a way to actually spread music to everyone, I guess. And it's cool that everyone can find their own little bits of what they like here and there. It's just that there are no more rock stars. There are no more overarching.
Yeah.
Like, you've got Drake and
Beyonce.
you got Drake and Beyonce and maybe Bieber. Like, but you don't have anything else that's overarching, because there's no way to propagate any kind of a rock star myth. There's no Freddie Mercury.
There's gotta be a way to
solve that.
It's a great question. I don't, like, if I was a giant media mogul, I guess I might have an idea. But it's like creating a whole other, it's like creating a myth machine, and we've lost the rock star myth machine at
What
this
about
point.
radio play? Like, have you guys, like, what do you guys think about that? Can you guys just go to a radio station and like, hey guys, it's our new album. Like, how's that?
Well, we're in a radio contest right now. 97.7 Hits FM.
You can vote for us.
You can vote
We
for
will.
us.
I
Text,
already did.
yeah. Text Joan.
Guys, vote for them, okay?
Text Joan at 977 Yeah.
Only if you're in Canada.
Yeah. But I've gone through the whole hiring a radio tracker, like, to get on commercial radio, spending thousands of bucks, and then getting like 11 spins out of it, because radio stations, like commercial radio stations, are gatekeepers, and there's 5 levels to get past the next one. And
Yeah,
once in a
it's
while,
very-
people get
They
lucky.
do get through. But how do they decide right now what to play? Like, is this what's popular? Do they wait after it becomes popular? Or like, there's gotta be a way, like,
It's
I
a
was talking
tough
to
one.
somebody.
Okay.
Sorry, I was just gonna say, Tom, I was talking to somebody, and then he was like he was big into the Toronto hip hop scene.
Yeah.
So he was talking about how the Toronto hip hop scene is very underrated compared to the U.S. and said, hey,
Right.
it's a bigger industry.
Right.
Yeah.
That's anything. But then he talked about how things would blow up in the U.S. and he would play the same songs here before it blew up, and no one would care.
Right.
But after it blew up, they would look at that as an indication. Okay, this is the song, because he worked
Yeah.
with. Do you guys know Cardinal Official?
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he worked with him with the song that he came up with Akon. I think it was called Dangerous.
Oh yeah, that song.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Remember
So
that song.
he released the song in Canada first.
Nothing.
Pin drop silence. But then when
Because
he released-
it was big in Canada, but probably after.
No, but that's what he said.
Yeah.
And then he released it in the U.S. #1 everywhere, and then it became #1 in Canada after. But
Right.
even like he said, like in the first couple of months he came back, and still like no one was like, okay, yeah, maybe. Just like it was big in everywhere else. But then he talked about it was an issue about how the radios here don't play Canadian music as much.
Yeah.
Like 70 to 80% music they play is U.S.
Totally.
I don't even know.
Well,
the
I know
actual
they're legally supposed to play over 30%, just over 30%.
But the problem is that they'll just play,
They're just with a minimum amount.
and
And
they'll
they'll
play
always
the
play
same
the
thing
same
over and over.
words.
Exactly. Is it because they want to get the audience?
They're just like getting they're just getting the most popular wide appeal thing, but there's a Canadian mentality absolutely within the music industry and entertainment industry in general, like comedy,
Fear
film.
of the flop.
It's just like nothing's cool unless it's been deemed cool by another
Totally.
country. Like Feist only made it after she left Canada and lived in France and then came back. Peaches only became famous after she moved to Berlin and became cool and then came back. And people were like, oh, they're Canadian, so cool. But it's like, they went somewhere else and then became cool.
So what is it in Berlin that we don't have in Toronto?
I mean, there's a lot of things, but...
I mean, yeah. I'm not talking about the beer, but I'm talking like in terms of music though. Like what? Like can we just get their model and?
But
use
I
it
think
in
it's
Toronto?
just acceptance. I think it's acceptance for the bizarre or the different, and that's just it. Like as as a musician, we have to do a lot of side hustle gigs where we're playing corporate events or whatever. And every single weekend, any given weekend of any season or any walk of life, the same like 12 songs are, you must play this, and it's like, well, we already played that. I'm like, there is, and those things exist, and they will always exist. But there are more modern versions that are kind of like, were you listening to the first half of the concert that we played? I don't know. Whereas that would happen in other parts of the world, of course, but you know, if you go into a music venue in somewhere like Berlin or anywhere around Europe, you'll find weirder shit. And there will be people there to check it out, you know, very enthusiastically.
Yeah, I think it's just a general attitude of being open-minded to a lot more things.
Berlin is open-minded to a lot of things.
Yeah, it sounds like I'm only...
to a lot of things.
Yeah, their nightlife is like 1,000 times more developed than Toronto's, that's for sure. But yeah, it's Canada is... I've talked about it with so many friends that moved, like actor friends moved to the States even. They're like, there's no star system here. It's like Canada doesn't want to have a star system. It wants to wait for the States to make somebody big.
Play safe, let them take the risk, and then we'll just reap the rewards.
Yeah, but then meanwhile, Quebec has an amazing star system. Like, artists there.
So it's not Canada, you're saying, it's just...
It's English-speaking Canada.
Really?
Quebec
so what's
has
the model? How's the model like in Quebec? Is it the same situation? Like they're more accepted?
They fund their arts very specifically. Like if you turn on a radio station there, like you'll hear all Quebecois artists.
Yeah.
They will.
I definitely know some people that have made French records to try to break into that.
Yeah.
Really?
Because they make a really good living there. Like you talk to an artist there, and they're like, "Yeah, I made $100,000 last year," and then somebody who's famous in Toronto's like, "I made $30,000 last year." Like the money is there, and they put it to their own use. They focus it to their own culture.
That makes sense. Where we here import our...
We import it a lot.
People.
Yeah, we put more value on things that are already heard of versus being like, let's build this up from the ground up. And which is what music used to be, I think, would be like, whoa, this woman Kate Bush is 17 and who is she? Let's give her 2 years to make a record and then it'll be a crazy record. And now it's just sort of like, whoa, this person has 3 million YouTube views, so let's give them a record deal. Like that's the end of it. So different attitudes.
We talked about it a lot too, me and Fernando. It's like, why isn't, like, there's so many good bands in Toronto.
Totally.
Why is this, like, there's got to be a solution to this. So actually, that's why we wanted to start this blog and this whole thing.
Okay.
So we can give people as much exposure as possible, but also to bring up this topic, like, what can we do?
Yeah.
To like, you know,
How to solve it. That's the question. What's the problem and how to solve it, right?
Yeah.
Well, having a music blog and like that in and of itself
is one of those things, for sure.
A powerful thing. Cause
celebrating those artists, like finding a way to make that cool, you know,
it's
letting
helpful.
people know.
Yeah. It's very helpful. It's a good way to do it.
Yeah. What? It's gonna go. Sorry, Tom. Were you gonna say something?
I was just gonna say, I got like the main thing that we can do is just try to be as honest as we can with the music that we're creating, and as you know, for lack of a better word, as weird as we can, you know, without being too afraid of the confines of popularity and success. And we certainly have a lot of friends that exercise music making in that way, you know, and not a whole lot of them are, you know, huge successes, but it certainly doesn't mean that they're like competitors to any given, you know, music act.
Like, I could be biased, but I think the successful bands that are coming out of Toronto, they have some sort of responsibility to pull others up as well. I don't know how much they do, maybe you guys know.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, a good friend of mine, Nick Tian, is starting to do reviews of, he was just like, send me your music in a Facebook post or an Instagram post or whatever. and he started doing reviews of mostly friends, like people that would know him would have seen the post, but yeah, I could certainly think about doing that as well, and just trying to include people, you know, including Friendly Rich in our music, and working together to
community
help that grow.
Community is
like I know like hip hop artists do that a lot.
Yeah.
Like Drake, he found Weekend, I think.
Oh, did he?
Right.
Yeah, he was, and then he gave him a chance, like something like that. Like maybe the Glorious Sons can put you guys up.
It would be nice to have, you know, right now, like our pals with F. Scott and the Fitzgeralds, or F. Scott Fitzgerald is.
Isn't our
F. Scott's
F. Scott and the Nighthawks.
F. Scott and the Nighthawks.
Is he alive?
Delete that. F. Scott and the Nighthawks. They're like, pretty much every one of them is like, has been in touch with us for this, through the pandemic, and their manager Sean, like was constantly trying to think of ways of being inclusive and collaborative, and that stuff's awesome. And you know, different people work with different artists and musicians in the industry, and if we could find a way to be more inclusive and less
competitive,
and protective.
It's funny you mentioned that, Tom, because I see that in like photography as well.
Oh yeah.
I'm a full-time photographer now, so I see that in photography so much. Like people, when you go into like get-togethers, right? People are all about like, no, I do this my way, and I don't want to tell anyone. I had a different career before, but in that other industry, it would be all like, you know, hey, can I learn about this? And people would be like, yeah, no problem, I'll teach you how to do this. Here. But in photography, it's very different. Like it's like, no, like, you know, I do it my own way. Like, you know, there's these different. But yeah, we talk about that all the time too. Like, I talked to Jackson, our photographer, about that as well. That whenever we go to like photography conferences, you see people like trying to be like very secretive. Like, hey, how do you make this picture?
Weird.
Oh yeah, it's just like that. It's like vague answer.
And in this time where it's like
everything's
accessible,
information is there.
You see these kids playing the guitar that are so young, or whatever instrument, or making beats, and it's just like, holy fuck, it's insane. Like younger and younger, getting more and more incredible. It's all there. There's no.
You just like have to dig through it.
It's just about experiencing after that, you know, and appreciating and celebrating.
But like propping each other up versus trying to just be like, it's mine. Like, there's no point. Like, there's nothing to protect. It's like, let's all just share what we had to.
Would you say that your band is there like as the most precious asset that you can share with others?
Oh, that it is the most precious asset? Is that a question in that, or that?
What is the most precious?
What is the most
precious asset that you have as a band?
Oh, what is the most precious asset as a band?
Let's say if you were like Drake size, what would you share with everyone?
Oh.
You know what I mean?
Oh.
Wow.
I mean, I love the idea of like getting to work for.
She's gonna say fuck Trump.
yeah.
I feel like there's certainly enough of that.
We would
going
hire
on.
an army to murder Trump. I mean, I love the idea of that. Like, Serena was really awesome to hire me.
How did that? Like, can you talk about that after?
Sure.
Question.
But like the fact that she's able to employ so many people, and it like really helps everyone's lives. Like, so if we could like get to a point where we were able to hire our friends and pay them really well, and a whole bunch of people in our community would be like.
And speaking to the Tron Bonham thing too, it's like we like to, you know, we're musicians, we do this for a living, and the people that are really good friends, they also do this for a living. For the most part, I mean, pretty much.
Most of them do.
All of them. So, you know, it is nice to be able to have something that, you know, provides opportunity. And
Or opening slots too. If like we were Drake size, it was like, oh, we need an opening band. It'd be great to just be like calling, not waiting for a label to be like, well, you have to take this person. Just like, no, we're taking this band. We don't care if they have 20 fans on Facebook.
Like a festival.
Yeah, we like them, so bam, that would be really cool.
Yeah.
So tell us, how'd you get in touch with Serena? Like, how did she get in touch with you?
Well, with Little for Longfoot, our last EP, Colin McDonald from the Trews produced it, because Jeff, my bandmate, plays in the Trews as well. So, and then meanwhile, Colin was dating Serena, so we would hang out sometimes and be at Trew shows together and stuff. And Colin took her to some of my shows, so she saw me play a few times, and then her guitarist was leaving her band, and she thought of me, so I just got a random phone call one day.
But there was also a moment too, the Kita Bala show, where you sat in with them, and then she called you like the next day.
Yeah, because she was at that show.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, because we were.
It was a nice moment.
Yeah.
So if Serena liked it, I'm sure a lot of people would like you.
That's
They had
awesome.
exposure to your music.
Yeah, it was pretty awesome. Yeah.
I have a like a different type of question. So we get this question all the time about being the female lead. I think in your Facebook you meant yes, a female front, with a little bit of sarcasm or frustration. I'm not sure what to. But can you talk about that? Because I know the music scene is probably male heavy, like many other industries.
Right.
So what has been your experience? So first of all, do you get asked this question a lot?
It's definitely the most.
That's what I told
well, just
you.
like tinged. Like there's always like a female, but
You get
I'm
lumped
happy.
in. You get lumped into a thing more
There's-
so than ask the question.
Yeah, I guess so. That's a good way of putting it. I mean, I'm always happy to discuss it because it's still a thing. Like even though it's been forever, it's like, oh, so you front
So
of
how
rock
is it?
band.
How is it? So tell us about like your challenges.
Um,
Like how is it a thing? Like can you share some stories that you're like, okay, now I felt it because I'm a girl. That's why.
Right. I mean, it is changing. I'm noticing it changing more now, finally. But just so many times walking into a rock club with my guitar, and it's like my big Yamaha is actually an acoustic case because it was the case that fit it, and then people would be like, "Oh, I'm just gonna play some folk music," and then I'd go up and be the loudest band, and then afterwards I'm like, "Oh my God, you're so loud! I was so shocked." It was like always the element of surprise is advantageous, but it's also annoying. It's like, did you not think that it's like, you're so small? How do you do this? You're so small. It's like, I don't know. There's lots of small men who do rock music too. Like,
you were so small. How you do this?
yeah, there's so many times like, how's that big voice coming out of that little girl? Your guitar is so big. How do you hold it? Like, yeah, just very condescending remarks. And I would always laugh it off. Like, it doesn't, even at the time, it wouldn't make me angry. I would just like wait later on and be like, oh yeah, I guess this is all kind of belittling. And it just sort of like builds up more and more over time. We're like, oh, you're the girlfriend. It's like, no, it's my band. I'm not loading in my boyfriend's gear. Like, it was a thing for so long, and it seems that part does seem to be changing now, which is great.
Is it changing?
It does seem to be changing a bit, but meanwhile, it's still like the rock scene that we're in is still so much just like, here are 20 bands of dudes, and then our band is like the female fronted one, or like being put on a bill with only female fronted bands, and you're like, is that a genre? That's not really a genre, is it? It's just females fronting bands. Like, is this going to be the dude fronted bands? Is that a bill? No, it's not. So it's funny to have it like be a genre, and I guess that's why I put it very sarcastically, because people are like, you have to bring it up because it's marketable and it's what sets you apart. And so it's like, yeah, sure, here, yep, it's a girl singing rock music. And the fact that that's still kind of weird is, it's absurd, I guess. But it's nice to have something to set you apart from other things in a giant, crowded room of bands.
As much as you can use it.
Yeah, it's like you have to use it so that people are like, oh yeah, what band was that? Oh, it's the one with the redheaded woman fronting it. Versus whatever else they're going to categorize it by.
Yeah.
And that's the industry. but it is what it is, and sometimes choose to ignore it, but then people are like, why aren't you marketing it as a female-fronted band then?
Yeah.
Because that's what you have to do. It's like, okay.
Well, you don't even, like, it's the truth. You don't even have to market it. Like, that's the truth. Like, you're fronting the band.
Yeah, but it's like, but if I was a white dude, it would not be white man fronted band. Like, it would never be put that way.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, it would just be band.
It would just be, there is a
Why
rock
can't it just be
band.
band?
Check it out.
Yeah.
So,
It's like little
We
details.
were talking the other day, we were asking, would you judge people based on their music preferences?
would I judge them?
Would you?
So the answer is, like, obviously the politically
Obviously
correct
you're
answer
gonna
is
say no.
If I tell you that
Would you
this
judge?
40-year-old man listens to Backstreet Boys,
Yeah.
you lost out.
I'm
Sweet.
pretty sure we know some. Yeah.
Oh, I was like, would I judge them harshly for
Not
that?
harshly, but like a little bit, like being like, oh god, this guy is listening to.
I would probably categorize them in my mind in some way,
Yeah.
for sure. But I also be like, you love what you love.
No, of course that's the case.
Yeah.
Like for example,
Yeah.
like if like what I think it was a TV show. I forgot. It was Modern Family, I think. So there's like little girl. She grew up now. She's like 12 or 13, and she's like, "Can I play my music?" And then she's playing like death metal, and everyone's like, "What's going on? Like, is something wrong with her?" So that kind of gave me the idea. I'm like, wow,
Yeah.
people do judge others based on, like, if a little girl was listening
Right.
to Lamb of God,
Right.
like, you're like, what do you think?
Well,
She's
yeah,
cool.
I feel
I would judge her as
Yeah.
pretty interesting. wouldn't
Yeah.
I?
But it's a whole other thing now, right? Because I think when we were growing up, like, there was definitely like categories even at high school. Like
The
you
clothes
fit
you
in
wear.
this
The
category.
rocker,
yeah.
the
And you know, not to say that that's a healthy thing either. I don't know. Either way is whatever it is. But right now, it's kind of like the same person can be very much into Backstreet Boys and death metal. You know, like, so it's I don't know what that is, but it just is. It seems to be the
But
case.
there's always a heavy bias towards, like, and it's funny you mentioned that, Tom, because in our high school, we obviously had the rockers, the hip hoppers, and they would sit together too at the same, like, they would hang out together.
Yeah,
Kind of become your own culture, right?
but it's
Yeah,
just
they would-
understood that that's
yeah,
what
but
you're
then
mostly
they
into.
were like certain attributes that would go along with these, like, these people do these kind of stuff.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Like, these people do these kind of stuff.
Right. Yeah, it's things are getting more homogenized to
Yeah.
a certain degree. But like, it's a cool insight to know when I guess it's like judging someone, but also just getting to know who they are and what they like is interesting.
Yeah.
Like-
Have you had anybody that you're like, oh, that's an interesting choice of music, like, you listen to?
That's an interesting. I'm sure there's tons of people that like some like middle-aged, talking to some middle-aged woman who loves death metal is a cool discovery usually. And also if there's like a 6-year-old kid. Oh yeah, like my friend's baby, she loves the Strokes. Like a baby, she's only like 6 months old, and he's like, she loves the new Strokes album. I'm like,
But she just rocks, like,
yeah, like anytime like he puts it on and she's like, yeah, like that's interesting. That's an interesting thing. So yeah.
Yeah, well, definitely there's, for death metal and like some sort of like some music genre, you will have less people listening to, in general.
Of course.
Like, I don't think there's like as many people going to Lamb of God concert as they would go to Beyonce's concert.
Of course. Yeah.
Right, so just except
But how about, let's say, Metallica?
that's a different story, yeah.
Totally.
They're just in
The same,
the
right?
mainstream area of the same sort of business, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Or Slayer.
Yeah. Totally.
we had last week a few other questions. In terms of the album, like,
Uh-huh.
do you have any plans, any full album coming out, or?
I guess we'll have to decide if the singles we've been releasing, if at some point we'll put them all together with some other new songs into an album. But yeah, we have to start the writing process with some new songs now that we're fine. We still have one more single coming out in August, and then
Nice.
after that. And then I think we're also going to do a Tron Bonham version of the Normalize EP as well. So that's just a project that we'll do because we have the time still. But yeah, otherwise it'll be time to start writing again.
Which one of the singles you guys have got the best feedback so far? I'll tell you which one my favorite, but.
Oh, okay. I feel like the first one helped me out. Probably got the best response because people. Oh, because it was a little bit different than everything else that we've released. Yeah, I like it. I mean, the string arrangements and even my parents liked that one. So yeah, they're like, "Oh, this is nice." And
They
I'm
don't
like,
usually like your music.
well, they like it, but like this one I think was a little more like they could identify and understand it a little bit more versus like like just like yeah, it's a little more palatable to some people. But yeah.
No, I just wanted to, you to tell us more about the thing that you're going on with the 977, just for the people to know it.
Right. Yes, it's 97.7 Hits FM Rock Search, and we're now in the top 8. We made it from the top 16. So our next goal is to make it to the top 4. They're featuring us on July 10th at 1 p.m.
Yeah, depending on when you guys air
I don't know
this.
when you're releasing this, but
Hopefully before that.
if it is July 10th, 1 p.m., they'll be playing our songs on air, which is a big deal for commercial radio because commercial radio is hard to get on.
Nice.
Yeah, if we can make top 4, that would be great. If we can win the whole thing.
What if you make what's the prize?
The main prize, if we win the whole thing, there's like a big cash prize. There's
Meeting with Dynalone.
Dynalone Records meeting. There's some Long and McQuaid gift certificates.
Tim Hortons gift certificate.
Tim Hortons
Long
gift
and
certificate.
McQuaid and Tim Hortons, so Canadian.
So Canadian.
How can we make it less Canadian?
So
You gotta
Maple Leaf, a flannel.
You gotta get that
Yeah.
double
Some
in
wrap in
yet.
your box, that's like
A toque. Yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
hockey stick.
Yeah.
We were doing a tour with a band that got those like Taco Bell.
Gift
Taco
cards?
Bell
Oh,
gift
yeah.
cards. It's like $5. We got $500 worth of.
The ketchup, ground beef.
It was whatever, but yeah, whatever was going on there. I think we made one stop at a Taco Bell and then just started handing them out to like.
It's like, who wants to sit in a
Whoever seen
van
one
with a bunch of dudes that are eating
Oh,
Taco
no.
Bell all day?
And
It's the
after 30 or
worst.
40
Just-
minutes, so bad.
Not yeah.
Well,
Anyway,
you guys definitely have our vote. So.
Thank you.
You guys
Thank
remember
you.
that vote for them. All right, do you guys want to do the photo shoot? Because we have.
Sure.
sure,
You
yeah.
guys want to? Yeah.
Thank
so much for coming.